All right, so Michael Mayer has officially been drafted. A lot of people were wondering, when was he going to get drafted? He's someone who I had a first round grade on. A lot of people had a first round grade on him, and I think very few people had him as the number 3 tight end, which is where he ended up going. I had him as the number 2 tight end behind Kincaid. Plenty of people had him as the number 1 tight end, and we'll get into it once we get into the film in just a second about why. And I totally understand why you could make him your number 1 tight end. He's a very exciting tight end and kind of just fits the Raiders. I feel like he totally feels like a player who played at Notre Dame and then got drafted by the Raiders. Like, that just totally checks out, and we'll see that in just a second. They traded up to make this happen. They did not just sit around and let it happen. They decided they wanted to go up and get this guy, which typically I don't like trading up for non-quarterbacks, but I'm more willing to do it after the first round. First round, you really shouldn't trade up unless you're trading up to get a quarterback. But I think later on, I'm more okay with doing it. The trade compensation itself is, so the Raiders traded, the pick number, it's a trade pick 35 to the Colts in exchange for number 38 and a 5th round pick. So the Raiders move up a few spots, give up a 5th round pick to do so, but are getting a player who I think they feel like is significantly higher than anyone else on their board. And that's where things get a little bit weird, right? Because you could look at the Jimmy Johnson chart or whichever chart you want to look at and say, is this fair value? Is it unfair value? Typically you think, man, giving up an extra pick to move from 38 to 35 feels a bit high, not massively high. Maybe that's even fair value, but it becomes good value when you factor in the player you're getting being someone who I think is a really good player, and I think this is kind of a steal of a selection, to be honest, by the Raiders. I think that this is a great move by them. And so, I'm a little surprised that other teams aren't as high on him. My guess is they don't necessarily love the lack of explosiveness, which is, again, something we're going to get into once we get into the film. I'm assuming that's maybe why he fell a little bit. Maybe teams feel like they don't necessarily want a do-it-all tight end. They want someone who can maybe really excel at specific things. And when it comes to Kincaid, I get it, because I think he's great as like a receiving tight end. But in this scenario, I don't know. I would have much rather had Mayer than a lot of guys who went in round 1. So, let's talk about the Raiders doing great work with their second round selection, in my opinion. That's my opinion on the pick. But now let's talk about the player. So first, his Pro Football Focus page, you see that, really good stuff, right? I mean, the 92.5 grade is fantastic, and that's definitely something that, does translate to the NFL relatively well, the tight end position. PFF grades do matter. Guys with good PFF grades do more often than not become good NFL players. It's not quite as consistent as other positions, but it's something to look at, and for Michael Mayer, having a really good 2022 season is definitely ideal. And you see that he's improved every year he's been in college, which is another good thing. You like to see guys who get better, and he is someone who gets better. Now, you look over at the columns to the right, or I guess the bars to the right. Basically, for each of those stats, that little dot that's in the middle of the bar, the further towards the right it is, the better it is. You see that a lot of stuff far over to the right. Not in every category, though. The drop rate kind of around, just above average for a college tight end, which is, a bit disappointing for a guy who is a very hyped up prospect. You'd like to see maybe a little bit better hands in that scenario, but again, you can only learn so much from looking at these numbers. You have to watch the tape, so let's watch some tape. Starting off with a play like this, it's really funny, just watching tape of Notre Dame because of how much they used this guy. I mean, he was their offense at times. It's kind of similar to how you see like some of those high school games where there's like one player who's going to be a good college player, and so they just run all their plays through that guy. It's usually not the tight end who they do that through, though. Usually it's a running back or a wide receiver. In this scenario, it is a tight end, Michael Mayer, and watch what they're going to do here. As you see, it's going to be a little pitch pass, so technically a reception right here. But again, in this scenario, typically you want a wide receiver here being able to run past these players. In this spot, for a tight end, it would totally be understandable if he got tackled for no gain on this play, but he isn't just some ordinary tight end. Watch how he is able to sidestep and be able to pick up a nice chunk play on that one. And these are the kind of things he was very capable of doing. Really good with the ball in his hands, really good just kind of in every single spot of the game, it felt like. Heading over here, we talk about the blocking ability. Very good blocker. I mean, again, definitely a little bit bigger than someone like Dalton Kincaid, and I think he uses it well. Not much bigger, but still bigger, and definitely I think can make these blocks very effectively. Watch out on this one. You definitely see him be able to, get 42 pretty much completely out of the play on that one. 42 eventually fell on the ball carrier who was on the ground, but other than that, Mayer was able to certainly make that block. And again, very good blocker. Someone you certainly trust to be able to win his blocks in these one-on-one situations, which, listen, definitely matters. Now, would you rather have a blocking tight end or a receiving tight end? I'd rather a receiving tight end, but what would I rather have more than anything is a guy who can do both, and he is a guy who can do both, which is definitely his value because, he's not giving anything away. When he comes on the field, you don't know if you're going to run the ball or pass the ball because he can be effective in both of those scenarios. One thing I like is something like this. For tight ends, a lot of times it's feel of zone coverage, right? That's kind of the way I would describe it, of understanding what zone coverage is, understanding where the gaps are, and how to find a way to get open in those situations. And that is definitely something that Mayer can do really well. That's something that he knows how to do, is just find ways to get open in zone. This is a great example where that's his route, is just, quick route, trying to get open, in a gap in coverage. Simple enough. But when his play begins, watch how he does it. Watch how he does do a good job of noticing where he is and even moves towards the quarterback to make the throw a little bit easier. Ball didn't go in that direction, but who cares? We're just evaluating Mayer, who did a very good job on that play of just understanding where he has to be, and that's something that every offense can use. I don't care what offense you are, you can use a guy like that. Now, I do have a knock on him, and the knock is he's not the most explosive tight end. He just isn't. There are more explosive tight ends in the league. There's no denying that. You see where he is on the field, and just watch what happens. Look, as you see, he's going to eventually run underneath, and there's a defensive player who's basically able to hang with him this entire time. Eventually, he cuts off and got a little bit of separation underneath, but he wasn't able to get the separation the way the play was designed for him to get the separation, which was him being able to outrun his defender. It's just not a huge part of his game. He ran a 4.7, which is solid for his size. Like, you're not mad at that necessarily, but he just isn't quite on the elite, speed spectrum. He's not quite there. He's not very high on the elite speed spectrum, which is not an expression. I don't know why I said it like that, but you know what I mean. He's not overly explosive. It's not bad. It's just fine. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on Mayer. What I like about him, my critiques as a whole, I think he's a really good player. Definitely, I didn't have a ton of first round grades this draft, but he was one of them for sure. So definitely like him as a player. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your positives? What are your negatives with him as a player? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.